My sister and I endured horrific starvation camps set up by our own mother, only to later discover that our supposedly kind uncle was secretly funding her abusive actions all along. So we finally escaped and exposed the dark truth behind their twisted betrayal. This summer was supposed to be a total nightmare. My mom called it Fat Camp, but believe me, it was nothing like the brochures. Her idea of a summer getaway for me and my sister Kate was dropping us off at our Uncle Harvey's farm to work 10 hours a day in weighted jackets, with just one loaf of bread between us. It was pure torture, a twisted punishment from a woman too. Cheap to pay for a real camp. But in this living hell, there was a small, quiet sliver of hope. My mom was so forgetful that she'd sometimes leave us alone at the farm for the entire day. She'd forget to check on our progress, so I always gave my sister Kate my food and let her hide in the shade of the barn. She'd play with the chickens, and I would try to work twice as hard so our mom wouldn't get mad at us for being lazy. It sounds crazy now, but for so long, this was just our normal. We weren't even fat. I'm pretty sure we were grossly underweight. My mom never let us near a scale, but I knew it wasn't normal for our bones to poke out or for us to feel dizzy every time we stood up. As I got a little older, I started noticing things. Every summer, I'd see Uncle Harvey slip my mom a wad of cash, about $5,000, and thank her for managing the farm. This was the same Uncle Harvey who was totally different from our mom. He was the kind of guy who would give us lollipops, hold his arms out, and yell, "Where are my girls?" before squeezing us in a tight hug until we were both laughing uncontrollably. When I turned 11, I started getting suspicious. We were homeschooled, so all my information about the outside world came from my mother. She filled our heads with so many lies, telling us the real world was this scary place where everyone was perfect and would unalive us if we ever tried to talk to them. Looking back, our relationship with her was a lot like Stockholm Syndrome. The constant hunger meant she had total control, but I always tried to take the blame for anything so Kate wouldn't get hurt. She wasn't just my sister anymore. She was my daughter, and seeing her in pain was worse than any pain I could ever feel myself. Most of the time, it worked. When I was 16 and Kate was 13, things got even worse. I honestly thought only one of us was going to make it out alive. I started giving her all my food and water, anything I could, but then one day, it all just ended. My mom's smoking habit finally caught up to her, and she died of a sudden heart attack. The next thing I remember is Uncle Harvey finding us. He hadn't seen us since before our mom went cuckoo crazy, and he couldn't stop crying. I didn't get why he was so upset, but he just kept repeating, "I had no idea, I'm so sorry." I later found out the sight of our cuts and injuries was not normal. It was distressing. He immediately took us in, and suddenly, we were faced with more food than I knew existed. "Did the famine end?" I exclaimed with total joy, a flicker of hope that our long, terrible ordeal was over. Kate's eyes were so wide I thought they would split open. When Uncle Harvey asked us what our favorite food was, I burst out laughing, thinking it was another one of his jokes. He just broke down crying again. He cried so much that month that I thought he was a wuss. I simply couldn't understand how traumatizing our upbringing truly was. Slowly, as we adjusted to real life, anger started to fill me. He enrolled us in school, promising we could leave at any time. I was still so skeptical that people wouldn't attack or murder me, but on my very first day, a girl with a big, bright smile asked if she could show me around. She wasn't perfect. In fact, she was a healthier version of me. I nodded slowly, and she just kept smiling. I straight up asked her if she wanted to attack me, and she just violently shook her head and kept going with the tour. Meanwhile, Kate made a friend who was just as quiet as she was. As the weeks went on, I started to realize just how effing psycho my mother was. How different she was from all the other mothers I saw picking up their children after school. I started wishing she was alive just so I could unalive her again. And then, I found something to bore all my anger into. Or rather, someone. It was the last day of school before summer. I got home early and found Uncle Harvey on the phone. He didn't hear me come in. I had mastered the art of silent footsteps. "They're safe now, and their mother did what needed to be done. That farm would have collapsed without her," he said. My heart dropped like a stone. He knew everything and did nothing. A cold dread spread through my chest as I rushed to Kate's room. She was sitting on her bed, safe, content, healing, reading a book he had bought her. The sight of her strengthened my resolve. We had to leave. I quickly explained what I'd heard, watching her face crumble with betrayal. We packed our bags in silence, stuffing clothes and toiletries into backpacks, along with the emergency cash I'd found in Uncle Harvey's desk drawer. "Going somewhere?" Uncle Harvey stood at the top of the stairs, arms crossed. My blood froze. Kate's hand tightened around mine, her fingers trembling. I stepped in front of her, a reflex I'd developed years ago. The carpet beneath my feet felt unstable, like it could give way at any moment. "Just getting some air," I lied, trying to keep my voice steady. Kate had a nightmare. The lie came easily. Years of practice made it sound almost convincing. I could feel Kate's rapid breathing behind me, her forehead pressed against my back. Uncle Harvey descended the stairs slowly, each footstep deliberate. The floorboards groaned under his weight. In the dim light, his face looked harder than I'd ever seen it. The kind uncle who had rescued us was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. His eyes were cold, calculating, reminding me suddenly and terribly of our mother. He gestured to our backpacks with our emergency cash in my hand. His voice was deceptively calm, but I could hear the anger simmering beneath the surface. My palms began to sweat. "We were scared," I said. The truth, at least partially. Fear was a constant companion. "Of what?" His voice was dangerously soft. "Of me? After everything I've done for you?" His expression was a mixture of hurt and indignation, as if we were being ungrateful. The familiar guilt rose up, threatening to drown me. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe we had misunderstood. Kate pressed against my back, her forehead between my shoulder blades. I could feel her trembling like a leaf. The sensation grounded me, reminding me why we needed to leave. It wasn't just about me anymore. It never had been. "You knew," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. "You knew what she was doing to us. You paid her to do it." The accusation hung in the air between us, heavy and undeniable. Uncle Harvey's expression shifted, not to guilt or shame, but to something calculating. He reached the bottom of the stairs and sighed heavily. "Your mother was complicated," he said, running a hand through his thinning hair. "But she managed the farm when I couldn't. When my back gave out 5 years ago, I needed help." His voice was reasonable, as if he were explaining something simple to a child. "So you bought us?" I spat, bile rising in my throat. "Child labor?" The words tasted bitter on my tongue. All those summers of pain and hunger, the weighted vests, the endless fields under the burning sun, all for his profit. "I gave you a purpose," he corrected, his tone hardening. "Structure. Discipline. The real world isn't kind to the weak, and your mother understood that." He sounded so much like her in that moment that I almost took a step back. The same justifications, the same twisted logic. Kate whimpered behind me. I felt a surge of protective rage burning through my veins. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms hard enough to leave crescent-shaped marks. "We were starving," I hissed. "We were children. Children who should have been playing, learning, growing, not working until our hands bled and our bodies gave out." Uncle Harvey's face softened suddenly, and he held out his hands in a placating gesture. "Look, it's late. You're upset. Let's all get some sleep and we can talk about this in the morning. I'll make pancakes. Your favorite." His smile was gentle, his voice soothing. The sudden shift threw me. This was the Uncle Harvey I remembered from before, the one with lollipops and hugs. But now I could see the manipulation behind it, the way he switched tactics when confrontation didn't work, how quickly he could transform from threatening to nurturing. It was calculated, practiced, and it had worked on us for years. "No," I said firmly. "We're leaving." My voice was stronger than I felt, the decision crystallizing in that moment. We couldn't stay here, not now that we knew the truth. His expression darkened again. "You're 16, your sister's 13. Where exactly do you think you're going? The streets? Foster care? You think that's better than here? Than a roof and food and family?" His words hit their mark, planting seeds of doubt. The unknown world outside was terrifying, especially after years of being told how dangerous it was. I faltered. He wasn't wrong. We had nowhere to go, not really. Just a vague plan and a school friend's mother who might help us. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me. What if I was making the wrong choice? What if I was putting Kate in danger? Uncle Harvey saw my hesitation and pressed his advantage. "I made mistakes. I trusted your mother too much, but I'm trying to make it right." His voice cracked with what sounded like genuine emotion. "Please, give me another chance." His eyes were pleading, his hands still outstretched toward us. Kate tugged at my shirt. When I glanced back, her eyes were wide and uncertain. She was scared of leaving the only stability we'd known since our mother died. The fear of the unknown warred with the fear of staying, leaving her paralyzed with indecision. I could feel her silently asking me to make the choice for both of us, as I always had. One night, I conceded reluctantly, we'll talk in the morning. It would give us time to think, to plan, maybe to find a better solution than running blindly. Into the night. Uncle Harvey's relief seemed genuine. Thank you. Now, back to bed, both of you. His shoulders relaxed, the tension draining from his posture. He stepped aside, clearing the path to the stairs. We trudged back upstairs, defeated. I tucked the cash I'd taken into my pillowcase when Uncle Harvey wasn't looking, just in case. The bills crinkled slightly as I smoothed the pillowcase over them, a small insurance policy against whatever tomorrow might bring. Are we really leaving tomorrow? Kate whispered once we were alone in our room. The moonlight streaming through the window cast her face in silver and shadow, making her look even younger than her 13 years. I hesitated. I don't know, I said, but I'm not letting him hurt us like Mom did. The promise felt heavy on my tongue, but I meant every word. Whatever happened, we wouldn't go back to that life. She nodded, curling up against me like she used to when we were little. I'm scared. Her voice was small, barely audible even in the quiet room. I could feel her heart beating rapidly against my side, a frightened bird in a cage. I know, I said, stroking her hair. But I've got you. Always. The familiar texture of her hair under my fingers was comforting, a reminder of all we'd survived together. No matter what happened, we would face it as we always had, together. Sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake, turning over options in my mind. We needed proof of what Uncle Harvey and our mother had done, something concrete that would ensure we'd never have to come back here. The ceiling above me had a water stain that looked vaguely like a map, and I traced its borders with my eyes, as I thought, listening to Kate's breathing slowly even out beside me. The next morning, Uncle Harvey was all smiles and pancakes, just as promised. The kitchen smelled of butter and maple syrup. Kate's eyes lit up. We'd never had pancakes before coming to live with him. The golden discs steamed on the plates, a pat of butter melting on top of each stack. It looked like something from a commercial, too perfect to be real. Eat up, he encouraged, sliding stacks onto our plates. Growing girls need their strength. His voice was cheerful, his manner relaxed, as if the confrontation of the previous night had never happened. The normalcy was jarring after the tension of the night before. I picked at mine wearily. So, what's the plan for today? The pancakes were sweet and fluffy, but each bite sat like lead in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all part of some strategy that the other shoe was about to drop. Well, he said casually, I thought we could all work together on the north field. It needs weeding before we can plant. His tone was light, but the words sent a chill down my spine. The north field. The same one where we'd spent countless hours under the summer sun, backs aching, hands blistered. And there it was, the mask slipping again, the kind uncle replaced by the farm owner who saw us as free labor. I set my fork down, my appetite gone completely. All day? I asked, my stomach nodding. The thought of returning to the fields made my palms sweat, memories of exhaustion and pain flooding back. Just until lunch, he assured me. Then you girls can have the afternoon off. As if he was being generous, as if working us for only half a day was some great kindness. The casual way he assumed control over our time and bodies made anger flare, hot in my chest. Kate seemed relieved by this compromise. I wasn't. I could see the manipulation for what it was now, the gradual reintroduction of work, the slow erosion of boundaries. Today, the North Field. Tomorrow, the entire farm. The why pattern was clear, and I wouldn't let it happen again. After breakfast, Uncle Harvey led us to the tool shed. Inside were the weighted vests, the same ones our mother had made us wear. My stomach churned at the sight of them, memories of aching shoulders and burning muscles flooding back. The canvas was still stained with our sweat, the sandbags still bulging from the pockets. They hung on hooks like waiting ghosts, a physical reminder of everything we'd endured. These will help build your strength, Uncle Harvey said, holding one out to Kate. His smile didn't reach his eyes as he tried to slip a vest over her shoulders. The familiar weight of it would bend her small frame, would start the process of breaking her all over again. No, I stepped between them. No vests. My voice was firm, my stance protective. I wouldn't let him do this to us again. Wouldn't let him turn back the clock to those days of suffering. Uncle Harvey's smile tightened. It's for your own good. Builds character. The same justification our mother had used. The same twisted logic that equated pain with improvement. The familiar words only strengthened my resolve. I said no. I stood my ground, heart pounding. For a moment, tension crackled between us like electricity before a storm. I half expected him to force the issue, to show his true colors completely. But then Uncle Harvey shrugged, setting the vest aside. Have it your way, but you'll need to work twice as hard without them. The threat was veiled but clear. There would be consequences for defiance. But it was a small victory, and I clung to it. We spent the morning pulling weeds under the blistering sun. Uncle Harvey worked alongside us, pointing out which plants to pull and which to leave. The soil was dry and hard, the weeds stubbornly rooted. My back ached from bending, my hands raw from pulling. Sweat dripped into my eyes, stinging and blurring my vision. On the surface, it seemed innocent enough, just a family working together on their farm. But I noticed how he pushed us to work faster, how his eyes narrowed when we took water breaks. The familiar patterns were emerging, the expectations, the pressure, the subtle punishment for any perceived slacking. By noon, Kate was swaying on her feet. Her face was flushed, and she kept blinking rapidly, signs of heat exhaustion I recognized all too well from our summers with our mother. Her hair was plastered to her forehead with sweat, her movements becoming increasingly uncoordinated. The sight sent panic through me. I'd seen this before, knew how quickly it could worsen. She needs to rest, I told Uncle Harvey, my voice leaving no room for argument. I was already moving toward Kate, supporting her weight as she leaned against me. He glanced at Kate, then nodded. Take her to the house, get some water. I'll finish up here. His casual acceptance was surprising, but I didn't question it. Getting Kate out of the sun was my only priority. I helped Kate back to the house, supporting her weight as she stumbled. The ground seemed to shift under her feet, her steps uncertain. Her skin was hot to the touch, her breathing shallow. Once inside, I sat her at the kitchen table and filled a glass with cold water. Small sips, I instructed, just like I used to. The routine was familiar, caring for Kate when she pushed. Too hard when conditions were too harsh. I dampened a cloth with cool water and pressed it to the back of her neck, watching the color slowly return to her face. While Kate recovered, I slipped away to Uncle Harvey's office. I needed evidence, something I could use if we had to run. Again. The room was neat and organized, everything in its place. A large desk dominated the space with filing cabinets against one wall and a bookshelf filled with farming manuals and ledgers. The locked drawer was my target, but this time, I needed to be faster. I picked the lock in seconds and began photographing. Documents with my phone, receipts, letters, anything that proved what they'd done to us. Years of practice breaking into our mother's locked cabinets had made me skilled with improvised lockpicks. The drawer slid open smoothly, revealing folders and loose papers. One letter in particular made my blood boil. Harvey, the older one, is getting suspicious. Caught her looking at your payment receipts. I've increased her workload to keep her tired and compliant. The younger one is still easy to manage. Margaret. The words were written in my mother's neat handwriting, the paper yellowed with age, but the message was clear. They had worked together to keep us exhausted and obedient, had strategized about how to maintain control. I was so engrossed in the documents that I didn't hear the footsteps until it was too late. The floorboard creaked behind me, and I knew instantly I'd been caught. What the hell do you think you're doing? The voice was cold, all pretense of the kind uncle completely gone. I whirled around. Uncle Harvey stood in the doorway, his face contorted with rage. I clutched my phone to my chest, backing away until I felt the edge of the desk press against my spine. The room suddenly seemed smaller, the air thicker and harder to breathe. I trusted you, he growled, advancing toward me. I gave you a home, food, school, and this is how you repay me? By snooping through my private things? His face was flushed with anger, a vein pulsing at his temple. In that moment, he looked so much like our mother that it was terrifying. You and my mother treated us like slaves, I shot back, my voice surprisingly steady despite the fear coursing through me. You knew we were starving. You knew about the abuse. The evidence was right there in his drawer, in his own handwriting. Years of exploitation documented in black and white. Your mother did what was necessary, he snapped, This farm has been in my family for generations, and I wasn't about to lose it because I couldn't work the fields anymore. She offered a solution. He spoke as if it was perfectly reasonable, as if using children as free labor was just good business sense. We were children, the words burst from me, all the anger and pain of years finally finding voice. Children who should have been protected, not exploited. Children who deserved care, not cruelty. You were strong, he countered, capable. She made sure of that. There was almost pride in his voice, as if our suffering had been some kind of achievement, as if breaking us down had made us better somehow. I edged toward the door, but Uncle Harvey blocked my path. "Give me the phone," he demanded, holding out his hand. His eyes were fixed on the device clutched against my chest, the evidence that could destroy him. No, I held it tighter, knowing it was my only leverage, our only chance. His eyes narrowed. "I'm not asking." The threat was clear in his voice, in the way he loomed over me, using his size to intimidate. Before I could react, he lunged forward and grabbed my wrist, twisting, until I cried out in pain. The phone clattered to the floor. Uncle Harvey snatched it up, his breathing heavy. The sudden violence confirmed everything I'd suspected. The kind uncle was just a mask, hiding something much darker. "Password," he demanded. The phone was locked. The photos inaccessible without the code. A small victory, but not enough. I remained silent, cradling my throbbing wrist. The pain radiated up my arm, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me cry. I'd endured worse, much worse, at our mother's hands. His face darkened. "Fine. Have it your way." He pocketed my phone and grabbed my arm, marching me back to the kitchen where Kate was still sitting. "Both of you, upstairs. Now." His voice was cold. "I need to think about what to do with you." Kate looked between us, confused and frightened. "What's happening?" Her voice was small, her eyes wide with fear as she took in my pained expression and Uncle Harvey's anger. "Your sister's been going through my things," Uncle Harvey said, taking pictures, planning to cause trouble. He made it sound like I was the villain, like I had betrayed some sacred trust rather than uncovered his crimes. I met Kate's eyes, silently willing her to trust me. "We need to leave, Kate. Tonight." I tried to convey everything in that look, that I had proof that we weren't safe here, that we needed to go. Uncle Harvey's grip on my arm tightened. "You're not going anywhere, neither of you." His fingers dug into my flesh, sure to leave bruises. Another familiar sensation, another echo of our past. He marched us upstairs and into our bedroom. "Stay here until I figure this out." He slammed the door behind him. A moment later, I heard the distinctive click of a lock being turned. The sound sent a wave of panic through me. Trapped again, at someone else's mercy. "He locked us in," Kate whispered, horrified. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for escape routes, for hiding places. The fear in her voice broke my heart. After everything, we were back where we started. I tried the door handle. Sure. Enough, it wouldn't budge. "It's okay," I assured her, though my heart was racing. "We've been through worse." And we had. We'd survived our mother. We'd survive Uncle Harvey, too. "What did you find?" Kate asked, sitting on the edge of her bed. Her color had returned, but her hands were shaking slightly as she twisted them in her lap. I hesitated, not wanting to burden her with the full truth. Evidence that Uncle Harvey knew about what Mom was doing to us, that he paid her to use us as farm workers. I couldn't bring myself to tell her about the letter, about how our mother had deliberately increased my workload to keep me compliant. Some truths were too painful, even now. Kate's face crumpled. "But he was nice to us. He gave us lollipops." The childlike simplicity of the statement made my chest ache. Even after everything, she wanted to believe in the good uncle, in the hugs and treats and kindness. "That's how they get you," I said bitterly. "They make you think they care, but it's all about what they can get from you." The realization had been slow in coming, but now it seemed so obvious. The lollipops, the hugs, all just ways to keep us compliant, to make us easier to control. I moved to the window, assessing our options. We were on the second floor, but there was a sloped roof below our window that led to the porch. We could climb down if we had to. The drop wasn't too far, and the ground below was grass, not concrete. It was risky, but possible. "We need to get my phone back," I told Kate. "It has pictures of the letters and receipts, evidence that would ensure we'd never have to come back, that would give us leverage if Uncle Harvey tried to find us." "How?" He locked us in. Kate's voice was small, defeated. The locked door seemed like an insurmountable obstacle after so many setbacks. I smiled grimly. Mom locked us in plenty of times, remember? I got pretty good at picking locks. Years of practice had made me skilled at improvising tools, at finding ways out of seemingly impossible situations. Using a bobby pin from Kate's hair, I worked on the door lock. It was trickier than Uncle Harvey's desk drawer, but after several minutes of careful manipulation, I heard the satisfying click. The small sound was like victory, a reminder that we weren't helpless, that we had skills our captors didn't expect. "Stay here," I whispered to Kate. "I'll get my phone and be right back." I didn't want to risk both of us getting caught. If something happened to me, Kate needed to be ready to escape through the window. I crept down the hallway, listening for Uncle Harvey. I heard his voice coming from the kitchen. He was on the phone again. The floorboards creaked slightly under my weight, and I froze, heart pounding, but his voice continued uninterrupted, oblivious to my presence. "Becoming a real problem," he was saying. "I can't control them like Margaret did. The older one. Especially, yeah, I know, but what am I supposed to do if they start talking?" His voice was strained, worried. The mention of our mother sent a chill down my spine. I froze, straining to hear more, pressed against the wall, barely breathing. I listened as he continued his conversation. Maybe sending the younger one away would solve it. Summer camp or something. Break them up. Yeah, exactly. Divide and conquer. His voice had a calculating edge that made my skin crawl. The casual way he discussed separating us, as if Kate was just a pawn in his game. My blood ran cold. He was planning to separate us, the one thing I'd fought my entire life to prevent. The thought of Kate alone, vulnerable, without me to protect her, filled me with a determination that overrode my fear. I wouldn't let it happen. Not again. Not ever. I slid down the stairs, careful to avoid the creaky spots I'd mentally mapped during our stay. Uncle Harvey's back was to me as he paced the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear. My phone was on the counter, just a few feet away from him, so close yet impossibly far with him standing right there. I needed a distraction. Glancing around, I spotted a stack of pans on the drying rack. If I could knock them over from a distance, the noise would draw him away from the counter, giving me a chance to grab the phone. I grabbed a dish towel from the hall closet, rolled it into a ball, and took aim. The towel sailed through the air and hit the pans, sending them clattering to the floor with a tremendous crash. The sound was deafening in the quiet house, metal against tile creating a cacophony that echoed through the rooms. Uncle Harvey jumped, dropping his phone. "What the?" He spun around, momentarily disoriented by the sudden noise. His eyes darted to the fallen pans, trying to make sense of what had happened. While he was distracted, I darted into the kitchen, snatched my phone, and raced back upstairs. I heard him cursing behind me as I slipped back into our room and locked the door. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, adrenaline making my hands shake. "Got it!" I gasped, showing Kate the phone. The screen was intact, the photos still there. Our ticket to freedom, our insurance policy against Uncle Harvey's lies. "Is he coming?" she asked fearfully. Her eyes were wide, her body tense with anticipation. She was already moving toward the window, ready to escape if necessary. I pressed my ear to the door. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. "Yes, quick, under the bed." It wasn't a perfect hiding place, but it would buy us time if he managed to get through the door. We scrambled under Kate's bed just as Uncle Harvey reached our door. The handle rattled violently. "I know you're in there," he shouted. "Open this door right now." His voice was thick with rage, the pounding on the door making the walls shake. We remained silent, hardly daring to breathe. The dust under the bed tickled my nose, and I pressed my face into my arm to suppress a sneeze. Kate's hand found mine in the darkness, her fingers cold with fear. After a minute of futile rattling, he stormed off. I heard him rummaging in another room. "He's looking for the key," I whispered. "We need to go now." There wasn't much time before he returned. And next time, he wouldn't be stopped by a locked door. We crawled out from under the bed. I grabbed our packed bags from the night before and moved to the window, sliding it open as quietly as possible. I peered out. The roof below was steep, but manageable. The shingles looked rough enough to provide some grip, and the drop to the ground wasn't too far. It was risky, but possible. "I'll go first," I told Kate. "Then I'll help you down." I needed to make sure the route was safe before risking Kate's life. If something went wrong, At least she'd still have a chance. I climbed out the window and carefully lowered myself onto the roof. The shingles were rough beneath my hands, providing decent grip. I scooted down to the edge, then dropped the short distance to the porch roof below. From there, it was an easy jump to the ground. The impact jarred my ankles, but nothing was broken. "Come on," I called softly to Kate, who was watching wide-eyed from the window. Her face was pale with fear, her hands gripping the windowsill so tightly her knuckles were white. She hesitated, then climbed out awkwardly, her movements stiff with fear. I talked her through each step, just like I used to talk her through our mother's tasks. "Left foot first, then right. Hold on to the gutter. That's it. Now slide down slowly." My voice was calm, encouraging, masking my own terror at seeing her on the steep roof. "You're doing great," I encouraged. "Just a little further." She was almost at the edge now, almost safe. Just a few more feet, and we'd be free. As Kate reached the edge of the roof, I heard the bedroom door bang open above. Uncle Harvey's enraged face appeared at the window. "Get back here!" he bellowed. His face was contorted with fury, all pretense of kindness completely gone. Kate froze in panic. The sudden shout startled her, and for a terrifying moment I thought she might slip. She teetered on the edge, arms windmilling for balance. "Jump! Kate!" I shouted. "I'll catch you!" There was no time for her to climb down carefully now. Uncle Harvey was already disappearing from the window, no doubt racing downstairs to cut us off. She closed her eyes and pushed off, landing in my arms, with enough force to knock us both down. We scrambled to our feet as Uncle Harvey disappeared from the window. The fall had scraped my elbows raw, but there was no time to worry about minor injuries. "He's coming," I gasped. "Run!" I grabbed Kate's hand and pulled her toward the road. We had to get away, had to find help before he caught us. We sprinted across the yard toward the road, our bags bouncing against our backs. Behind us, the front door flew open. Uncle Harvey charged after us, surprisingly fast for his age. His face was red with exertion and rage, his eyes fixed on us with a determination that sent fear coursing through me. "You ungrateful brats," he shouted, "after everything I've done for you." His voice carried across the yard, the words familiar, the same thing our mother used to say when we failed to meet her impossible standards. Kate was starting to lag behind, her shorter legs struggling to keep pace. I grabbed her hand, pulling her along. "Don't stop," I panted. "Keep going." I could hear Uncle Harvey gaining on us, his footsteps heavy on the gravel drive. My lungs burned, and Kate was wheezing beside me. Years of malnutrition had left us weak, our bodies not built for this kind of exertion. Then I spotted it. A truck approaching from the direction of town, a glimmer of hope in our desperate situation. I pulled Kate to the side of the road and stuck out my thumb, praying the driver would stop. The sound of the engine grew louder as it approached, and I waved frantically, trying to catch the driver's attention. To my immense relief, the truck slowed. The window rolled down, revealing a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and laugh lines. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and a coffee cup sat in the holder beside her. "You girls need a ride?" Her voice was concerned as she took in our disheveled appearance, the fear evident on our faces. "Yes, please," I gasped. "Into town." My voice was breathless with exertion and relief. A chance at escape, at safety. She glanced past us at Uncle Harvey, who was now only 100 yards away and shouting for us to stop. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Is that your dad?" The question was casual, but I could hear the concern underneath. "No," I said firmly, "and we need to get away from him. Please." I didn't have time to explain the whole situation, but something in my tone must have conveyed the urgency. Something in my voice must have convinced her. "Get in," she said, unlocking the doors. We scrambled into the truck just as Uncle Harvey reached us. He slapped his hand against the window. "These are my nieces," he told the woman, his voice strained with forced pleasantness. "They're running away after a little family disagreement. They're just confused." His smile was tight, his breathing heavy from the chase. The woman looked at us, then back at Uncle Harvey. "Seems like they're pretty clear on what they want," she said coolly. "I'm taking them to town." Her tone left no room for argument, her eyes hard as she assessed the situation. Before he could respond, she accelerated, leaving Uncle Harvey in a cloud of dust. The sudden movement pressed me back against the seat, and I watched through the rear window as his figure grew smaller, his arms raised in frustrated gestures. "Thank you," I breathed, my hands still shaking. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, leaving me feeling weak and shaky, but we were safe. At least for now. We had escaped. "You girls okay?" she asked, eyeing us in the rearview mirror. Her gaze was concerned, but not prying, giving us space to answer honestly. "We will be," I said, putting my arm around Kate. Her small body was still trembling against mine, but her breathing was starting to slow. "We just need to get away from him, away from the farm, away from the memories, away from the cycle of abuse that had defined our lives for so long." The woman nodded, not pressing for details. "Name's Elaine. I can take you to the sheriff's office if you want." The offer was kind, but the mention of authorities sent a wave of panic through me. I tensed. "No police, please." The last thing we needed was to end up in the system, possibly separated after everything we'd been through. Being apart from Kate was unthinkable. Elaine seemed to understand. "Where to, then?" She didn't question my refusal, just accepted it and moved on. Her calm acceptance was reassuring after Uncle Harvey's manipulations. I thought of Melissa, my friend from school. Her mother ran a youth outreach program. "Do you know Cheryl Wagner?" I asked. "She works with troubled teens, I think." It was a long shot, but Melissa had mentioned her mother's work once, how she helped kids in difficult situations. Elaine's eyebrows rose. "Cheryl? Sure, everyone knows her, runs the Haven Youth Center on Maple Street." The recognition in her voice was encouraging. A real place, a potential safe harbor. Relief washed over me. "Could you take us there?" A destination, a plan, something concrete to hold on to in the chaos. "You got it," Elaine said, turning at the next intersection. As we drove through town, I checked my phone. The photos were still there. Dozens of them. Letters, receipts, notes in my mother's handwriting detailing our training regimen. Evidence of years of abuse, neglected by the very person who should have protected us. The proof we needed to ensure we'd never have to go back. The Haven Youth Center was a converted Victorian house with a wide porch and cheerful yellow door. Elaine pulled up to the curb. "This is it," she said. The building looked welcoming, with flower pots on the steps and curtains in the windows. Nothing like the institutional horror I'd imagined. "Thank you for everything." The words seemed inadequate for what she'd done. For stopping when we needed help. For believing us. For not asking too many questions. Elaine scribbled something on her receipt and handed it to me. "My number. Call. If you need anything else." The simple gesture of kindness brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I tucked the paper carefully into my pocket, a lifeline if we needed it. We watched her drive away, then turned to face the center. Kate's hand found mine. "What if they send us back?" she whispered. The fear in her voice was palpable, the trauma of our past still fresh, despite our escape. "They won't," I promised. "I have proof now." I patted my pocket where my phone sat, the evidence safely stored. With those photos, no one could deny what had happened to us. No one could send us back. We climbed the steps and rang the doorbell. After a moment, the door opened to reveal a woman in her 40s with curly brown hair and glasses, Melissa's mom, Cheryl. Her face was kind but tired, lines around her eyes suggesting she'd seen a lot in her work with troubled teens. "Can I help?" "You?" she asked, her expression curious but kind. She looked between us, taking in our disheveled appearance, the backpacks clutched in our hands. "My name is—" I began, but was cut off by a voice behind her. The words died in my throat as a familiar face appeared in the doorway. "Oh my God, it's you!" Melissa appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with surprise. "From school, what are you doing here?" Her familiar face was a welcome sight, a connection to the normal world we'd briefly experienced. Cheryl looked between us. "You know each other?" Her eyebrows rose in surprise, her gaze sharpening with interest. Melissa nodded. "She's in my English class, the one I told you about who asked if I was going to attack her on her first day." She said it without judgment, just stating a fact. I remembered that moment. How strange my question must have seemed to her. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but Cheryl's expression softened with understanding. Something in her eyes suggested she'd heard stranger things, that my odd question hadn't been the most unusual thing she'd encountered in her work. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "Both of you." Her voice was warm, inviting, nothing like the cold command Uncle Harvey had used when ordering us around. Inside, the center was warm and inviting. Nothing like the sterile institutions I'd imagined. The walls were painted a soft yellow, with comfortable furniture arranged in conversational groupings. Art created by teens hung on the walls, and bookshelves lined one wall. It felt like a home, not an institution. Cheryl led us to a small office and closed the door. "Now," she said, sitting across from us, "why don't you tell me what's going on?" Her manner was direct but gentle, her eyes kind behind her glasses. She didn't rush us, didn't pressure, just waited for us to be ready. I took a deep breath and began our story. I told her everything. The fat camp that was really forced labor, the starvation, the weighted vests, the isolation. I showed her the photos of the letters and receipts on my phone. I explained how our mother had died and Uncle Harvey had taken us in, only for us to discover he'd known about the abuse all along, had paid for it even. The words poured out of me, years of secrets finally finding voice. Cheryl listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly troubled. She didn't gasp or exclaim, just took in the information with a professional calm that was somehow reassuring. This wasn't the first difficult story she'd heard, and her steady presence made it easier to continue. When I finished, she was silent, for a long moment. "First," she said finally, "I want you to know that I believe you. What happened to you and Kate wasn't your fault, and it wasn't your responsibility to protect her. But you did it anyway. That shows extraordinary strength." Her words were measured, sincere, not the empty platitudes I'd feared. I looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. For so long, protecting Kate had just been what I did, not something worthy of recognition or admiration. It was as natural as breathing, as necessary as food. What happens with Uncle Harvey? The question had been weighing on me since we escaped. Would he come looking for us? Would anyone believe our story against his? "Based on the evidence you've provided, there's enough for a criminal investigation," Cheryl said, "but that's separate from your placement. My job is to make sure you're safe and together." Her words were reassuring. Safety and togetherness, the two things we needed most. That night, Kate and I packed our few belongings. I still had the photos on my phone, backed up to a cloud account Cheryl had helped me create, evidence that couldn't be erased. The weight of secrecy had lifted, replaced by a cautious hope for the future. The next morning, Marcus and Janet Brooks arrived to pick us up. They were younger than I expected, maybe in their 30s. Marcus had a kind smile, and Janet wore her hair in a messy bun that reminded me of my school librarian. They were foster parents, Cheryl had called, experienced with cases like ours. "We're so glad to meet you," Janet said, helping us load our bags into their car. "We've got your room all set up." Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, her smile reaching her eyes. There was no calculation there, no hidden agenda, just a simple welcome. The drive to their house took about 20 minutes. They lived in a modest 2-story home with a small front yard and a basketball hoop in the driveway. The neighborhood was quiet, with trees lining the street and children's bikes left carelessly on lawns. Normal, safe. Inside, everything was slightly cluttered but clean, lived in, not perfect. Books and magazines were stacked on coffee tables, family photos hung on walls, a sweater was draped over the back of a chair. It looked nothing like Uncle Harvey's pristine house, or our mother's obsessively clean one. "Your room is upstairs. First door on the left," Marcus told us. "We thought you might want to decorate it yourselves, make it your own." The concept was foreign, having a space that was truly ours, that we could shape according to our preferences. The bedroom was simple but comfortable, 2 twin beds with fresh linens, a dresser, and a desk. On the desk sat notebooks and a package of colored pens. The room was painted a soft blue, with curtains that matched the bedspreads. It was plain but welcoming, a blank canvas waiting for our personal touches. "Thought you might like these," Janet said from the doorway, "for journaling or drawing or whatever." The gift was small but thoughtful, an acknowledgement of our individuality, our right to private thoughts and creative expression. Kate immediately picked up a blue pen and opened one of the notebooks. I watched her start sketching something. She hadn't done that since before our mother died. Her hand moved confidently across the page, creating shapes that gradually resolved into a recognizable image. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth, a glimpse of the person she might become when not weighed down by fear. The first few days with the Brooks were strange. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to reveal the real rules, to start demanding work or restricting food. But it never happened. Meals were regular and plentiful, with no expectation of earning our keep. We were encouraged to rest, to explore our interests, to simply be kids. Instead, Janet taught Kate how to bake cookies, the kitchen filled with the warm smell of vanilla and chocolate as they worked together, Janet patiently showing Kate how to measure ingredients and mix the dough. The simple domestic scene was so far removed from our past experiences that it felt almost surreal. Marcus showed me how to change a tire when he noticed me watching him work on the car. His hands were steady as he demonstrated each step, explaining the process without condescension. "Everyone should know basic car maintenance," he said. "It's a good skill to have." The lesson wasn't a chore or a test, just a practical sharing of knowledge. A week into our stay, Raymond visited to check on us. He was a social worker Cheryl had assigned to our case, a tall man with a quiet voice and thoughtful manner. "How's it going?" he asked me while Kate was showing Janet her drawings in the kitchen. We sat on the front porch, the afternoon sun warm on our faces. "Good," I said, surprised to realize I meant it. "They're nice." The word seemed inadequate to describe the Brooks, but it was the best I could do. Nice. Not in the superficial way Uncle Harvey had been, but genuinely, consistently kind. Raymond smiled. "They are. And they understand this is temporary, just until we figure out a permanent solution." His honesty was refreshing. No false promises, just the truth of our situation. "Have you heard anything about Uncle Harvey?" The question had been on my mind constantly, a shadow at the edge of our new beginning. What if he came looking for us? What if he tried to take us back? Raymond's expression grew serious. "He's being investigated. The sheriff executed a search warrant on the farm yesterday." His voice was measured, careful not to raise false hopes. My heart raced. Did they find anything? The thought of Uncle Harvey facing consequences for his actions was both terrifying and vindicating. After years of suffering in silence, the idea that someone might believe us, might hold him accountable, was almost too much to hope for. "Yes," Raymond said. "More documents and the weighted vests." The confirmation sent a wave of relief through me. Physical evidence that couldn't be denied or explained away. Proof that our story was true. I closed my eyes, a wave of validation washing over me. They believed us. They had proof. After years of gaslighting and manipulation, of being told our experiences weren't real or weren't that bad, the simple fact of being believed was overwhelming. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Uncle Harvey, about the farm, about all those summers of pain and hunger. The memories were vivid, the weight of the vests pressing down on my shoulders, the blisters on my hands, the constant, gnawing emptiness in my stomach. But for the first time, they felt like memories, not immediate threats. Past, not present. Kate was sleeping peacefully in the bed next to mine, her breathing deep and even. Her face was relaxed in sleep. The worry lines that had seemed permanent now smoothed away. She looked younger, more like the child she still was. I slipped out of bed and went downstairs for a glass of water. Marcus was in the kitchen, reading something on his tablet, the soft glow illuminating his face in the dimly lit room. "Can't sleep?" he asked, not looking up. His presence was comfortable, unthreatening. I shook my head. Too much thinking. My mind was racing with everything that had happened, everything that might still happen. The future was a vast unknown, simultaneously terrifying and full of possibility. He nodded, like that made perfect sense. "Want some hot chocolate? Always helps me when my brain won't shut up." The offer was casual, with no pressure to accept or refuse, just a simple kindness offered without expectation. 10 minutes later, we were sitting at the kitchen table with steaming mugs. The hot chocolate was rich and sweet, nothing like the watery powdered stuff our mother had occasionally allowed as a treat. Marcus didn't push me to talk, just sat there companionably. The silence was comfortable, not tense or loaded with unspoken demands. "Do you think he'll go to jail?" I finally asked. The question had been weighing on me, a mixture of hope and fear. Uncle Harvey. Part of me wanted him punished, wanted him to suffer as we had suffered. But another part just wanted to move on, to leave the past behind completely. Marcus considered this. Based on what I've heard, probably. But these things can take time. His answer was honest, not sugar-coated or dismissive. Adult to adult, not adult to child. "I don't know if I want that," I admitted. "Jail, I mean. I just want..." I trailed off, not sure how to articulate what I wanted. Justice seemed too abstract, revenge too dark. What I really wanted was acknowledgement of what had happened, of the wrong that had been done to us. For people to know the truth, Marcus suggested. His perception surprised me, his ability to understand what I couldn't fully express. Yeah, I said. And for him to know that we know, that we're not just going to pretend it didn't happen. That was it exactly. Not to be gaslit anymore, not to have our experiences denied or minimized, to have the truth recognized and validated. 2 weeks later, Raymond called with news. Uncle Harvey had been formally charged with child endangerment, neglect, and labor law violations. But there was something else. He wanted to speak with us. The request sent a chill through me, a reflexive fear at the thought of facing him again. You don't have to see him, Raymond emphasized. This is completely your choice. The assurance was important, that for once we had control over the situation, that our wishes would be respected, our boundaries maintained. I looked at Kate, who had been listening to the call on speakerphone. What do you think? I wanted her input, wanted her to know that her opinion mattered, that she had a voice in decisions that affected her. She bit her lip. I want to know why, she said quietly. Why he let it happen. Her question echoed my own thoughts. Not just what had happened, but why. The motivation behind the cruelty, the justification for the abuse. The meeting was arranged at Raymond's office, neutral territory. Uncle Harvey would be accompanied by his lawyer, and we would have Raymond and a victim advocate named Aaron with us. The arrangements were designed to make us feel safe, to give us control over the interaction. When the day came, my stomach was in knots. Janet drove us to the office, squeezing my hand before we went inside. Remember, she said, you can leave anytime. You're in control here. Her reassurance helped steady me, reminded me that this time we weren't alone. Uncle Harvey looked smaller somehow, sitting across the table from us. His shoulders were hunched, his face haggard. The commanding presence that had once terrified us was diminished, reduced to an aging man in an ill-fitting suit. His lawyer, a stern-looking woman in a navy suit, sat beside him, her expression professional, giving nothing away. Thank you for coming, Uncle Harvey said, his voice rough. The words sounded rehearsed, empty of genuine emotion. I said nothing, just stared. At him. Kate's hand found mine under the table. Her palm was sweaty, but her grip was firm, drawing strength from our connection. I wanted to explain, he continued when I didn't respond. About the farm. About your mother. He shifted in his seat, uncomfortable under our steady gaze. For once, he was the one being scrutinized, being judged. Go ahead, I said coldly. My voice was steadier than I expected, the fear I'd anticipated replaced by a calm certainty. We were here for answers, not reconciliation. He sighed heavily. The farm was failing, had been for years. Your mother knew I was going to lose it, the farm that had been in our family for generations. She offered a solution. The explanation was practical, businesslike, as if we were discussing a simple transaction rather than years of abuse. Us, I said flatly. The realization wasn't new, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. We had been commodities to them, resources, to be exploited rather than children to be protected. He nodded, unable to meet my eyes. She said she could manage it, keep it running with minimal cost. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know. The admission of willful ignorance was damning. He had chosen not to see, not to know, because the truth would have been inconvenient. But you did know, I countered. The letters prove it. The evidence was irrefutable. His own handwriting acknowledging what was happening, approving the methods used to control us. Not at first, he insisted. But yes, eventually. And I convinced myself it wasn't that bad, that she was just being strict, teaching you discipline. The justification was weak, the rationalization of someone who knew they had done wrong but couldn't face the full weight of their actions. We were starving, Kate said suddenly, her voice small but steady. We could see our bones. The simple statement cut through his excuses, laying bare the reality of what we had endured. Not discipline, not strictness. Abuse. Plain and simple. Uncle Harvey flinched. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have stopped it. Should have checked on you more often. The apology seemed genuine, but it was too little, too late. Words couldn't erase years of suffering, couldn't heal the wounds that had been inflicted. Why didn't you? I demanded. The question was direct, allowing no evasion. After everything, we deserved the truth, however ugly it might be. He was silent for a long moment. Because the farm was more important to me than you were, he finally admitted. And that's unforgivable. The raw honesty of it hit me like a physical blow. No excuses, no justifications, just the ugly truth. You're right, I said. It is unforgivable. There was a finality to the words, a closing of a door. Some things couldn't be fixed or forgiven, could only be acknowledged and left behind. We left shortly after that. There was nothing more to say. In the car, Kate was quiet, staring out the window. The buildings of the town passed by, ordinary people going about their ordinary lives, unaware of the momentous shift that had occurred. In hours. You okay? I asked her. The meeting had been difficult, confronting the source of so much pain. I worried about the effect it might have on her, whether it had been the right decision to go. She nodded slowly. I think so. It's weird, but I feel lighter. Like I was carrying something heavy, and now I'm not. Her expression was thoughtful, her eyes clearer than I'd seen them in a long time. I knew exactly what she meant. The weight of secrecy, of unacknowledged truth, had been lifted. The past wasn't erased, but it no longer defined us completely. We could begin to move forward, to build something new. The next few months brought changes. Uncle Harvey pleaded guilty to avoid a trial, accepting a sentence of 5 years. The farm was sold, with a portion of the proceeds placed in trust for Kate and me. Raymond found us a permanent placement with the Brooks, who started the process to become our legal guardians. The legal proceedings moved slowly but steadily, each step taking us further from our past and closer to a more secure future. School started again in September. This time, I didn't ask if people were going to attack me. The irrational fears our mother had instilled were fading, replaced by a more realistic understanding of the world. I made friends, joined clubs, began to experience the normal teenage life that had been denied to us for so long. Kate joined the art club and started bringing home paintings that Janet proudly displayed on the refrigerator. Her talent blossomed with encouragement and proper materials, her drawings becoming more confident and expressive. The quiet girl who had hidden behind me for protection was finding her own voice, her own strengths. I tried out for the track team. All those years of farm work had made me strong, if nothing else. Running became a release, a way to channel the restless energy that sometimes overwhelmed me. On the track, I could push my body on my own terms, could feel the satisfaction of effort freely given rather than coerced. One evening in October, I was helping Janet prepare dinner when she asked, "Have you thought about what you want to do after high school?" The question caught me off guard. We were chopping vegetables for a stir-fry, the kitchen warm and fragrant with garlic and ginger. I paused, knife hovering over the carrots I was chopping. No one had ever asked me that before. The future had always been a vague, threatening thing, not something to plan for or look forward to. Maybe something with advocacy, I said slowly. Helping kids like us. The idea had been forming gradually, a purpose emerging from the pain of our past. Janet smiled. You'd be good at that. Her approval was warm but not effusive, acknowledging my potential without putting pressure on me. Just another way she showed respect for our autonomy, our right to shape our own lives. Later that night, I found Kate in our room drawing as usual. I peered over her shoulder to see what she was working on. It was a chicken, plump and content-looking, scratching in the dirt. The details were lovingly rendered, from the texture of the feathers to the gleam in its eye. Remember that chicken at the farm? She asked. The one with the crooked beak that used to follow you around? Her voice was nostalgic, but not sad, recalling a small, bright spot in our otherwise dark past. I laughed, surprised by the memory. Sunshine. You named her Sunshine. The scrawny yellow hen that had somehow survived our mother's neglect, just as we had. Kate had loved that chicken, had saved scraps of her own meager food to feed it. Yeah, Kate smiled. She was the only good thing about that place. The simple statement contained so much, acknowledgement of the pain, but also the resilience that had allowed us to find moments of joy even in the darkest times. I sat beside her on the bed, watching her add details to the drawing. We made it, Kate, I said softly. We're okay. The words were a promise and a recognition of how far we'd come, of what we'd survived together. She nodded, adding a final flourish to the chicken's tail feathers. We are. Her agreement was quiet but certain, a shared understanding of our journey. And for the first time, I truly believed it. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. The future stretched before us, no longer a threat, but a possibility. There would be challenges, setbacks, lingering effects of our past. But we would face them together as we always had, not as victim and protector, but as sisters, supporting each other as we built new lives from the ashes of the old.